And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. We have this cool live vantage point there in New York Harbor, Lady Liberty there, standing proudly at night. Well, today, New York prosecutors oppose any effort to dismiss President-elect Donald Trump's hush money conviction, but they expressed openness today to delaying sentencing until after his impending second term here. Our friend Fox News correspondent Connor Hansen has more from New York. Let's watch.
Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg isn't giving up yet. Bragg brought Donald Trump's hush money trial to a jury in May and convicted him on 34 felonies. Then Trump won re-election, and the question became, can you sentence the incoming president?
You cannot have a local district attorney treat a sitting president like a freak on a leash, where he just is able to say that I will finish this work once you're out of office. It elevates the district attorney to a grotesque level.
Bragg told Judge Juan Merchan his office doesn't oppose Trump's sentencing being delayed, but the DA doesn't want the case dismissed until they explore other options, like postponing sentencing until Trump finishes his term in office.
The mere fact of his being president means that he is untouchable by the criminal law, which as a constitutional proposition just isn't right.
Trump's communications director claiming victory in a statement, quote, the Manhattan DA has conceded that this witch hunt cannot continue. The lawless case is now stayed, and President Trump's legal team is moving to get it dismissed once and for all. But Bragg is reluctant to let go of his court victory and the jury's verdict.
Bragg feels like he didn't lose. He feels like he won the case at trial. So it would be difficult for him to swallow hard and dismiss it at this point.
The Supreme Court's presidential immunity ruling and Trump's re-election have also put his 3 other active cases in limbo. In New York, Connor Hansen, Fox News.
Connor, thanks so much. So according to the Associated Press, in a court filing today, the Manhattan DA's office said that Trump's forthcoming presidency is not grounds for dropping a case that was already tried, but, quote, given the need to balance competing constitutional interests, consideration must be given to potentially freezing the case until after he's out of office. Let's talk about all of this even more with our friend legal analyst Randy Zelin, and he joins me. Randy, thanks for being with us. You were instrumental in guiding us here on Live Now throughout the entirety of this hush money payments trial, the case, the conviction here. So we're dealing with 2 separate things, the sentencing and the dismissal of the case outright. So what they agreed upon today, or what they are at least open to agreeing upon today, is that that November 26th sentencing date is a wash. It's going to be put on pause. What they haven't agreed on yet is whether or not the case should be dismissed outright. That's what Trump's legal team is arguing, and that ultimately rests on Judge Juan Merchan. Do I have that right?
Yes, you do, although there are some pathways to get this done where everyone can save face. And I am sure that District Attorney Bragg is trying to do just that. Let me get out of this and let me save face. And I'm sure Justice Merchan is hoping for the same result. And there are a few ways to do it. And if you want me to jump right in, I will. If you want to ask me any questions, just let me know.
No, please do, because I think what I'm trying to grapple with is, does the Manhattan DA's office, have it in them to wait this out for 4 years? Come January 20th, 2029, will we be talking about this yet again, that Trump could face sentencing post-presidency? Will it just be on pause the whole time?
It's enough already. Sure, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. Here are the pathways for everyone to get out of this feeling like they got something. And that's ultimately the definition of a good deal. Everybody walks away a little unhappy. Everybody walks away a little happy. Nobody's too happy. Nobody's too unhappy. Option number 1. District Attorney Bragg looks at the Supreme Court's decision concerning presidential immunity. says to Justice Merchan, the question of whether or not the president at the time was acting within the scope of his authority as president or whatever was going on, that's something that should have been decided before the trial. Your Honor should have held a hearing to determine whether or not anything that we're bringing charges on fall under presidential immunity. And for that reason, Your Honor, the conviction should be vacated and a hearing should be held to determine whether or not immunity applies. We can't do it now because he's coming in as president. So why don't we just can the whole thing? The second thing that can be done here, quite frankly, is that the district attorney's office could consent to what's called a 440 motion, which is a motion brought by the defense to vacate the conviction and just come up with a reason and be done with it. And then there's a third and an interesting avenue, which is why not Governor Hochul take some heat off of herself, get away from the congestion pricing and the violence and all the stuff that's going on in the city, and just pardon incoming President Trump, which he has the power to do as governor. In all three of those scenarios, Alvin Bragg knows that he got a conviction. He knows that the jury spoke. He did his job. But it's enough already, whether we like it or not. Donald Trump is the president-elect. He's got 4 years. He's got both houses. He's got the Senate. He's got the House. So we can either get on this bus or we can get hit by this bus or we can get out of the way of this bus. But the bus is coming, and it really is time for Mr. Bragg to focus in on the violence in our streets. We just had some lunatic stab and kill 3 people.
Right.
Why don't we worry about that instead of this hush money case?
Okay, so there is some parsing of the language I want to ask you about, because depending on what happens in this, depending on if the sentencing, doesn't happen, the conviction is essentially dismissed. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Bragg's office won't be able to, and Trump's detractors won't be able to call him a convicted felon. Why?
Because if the conviction is vacated, you can't call him a convicted felon. Does it really matter? If you're all that hot and bothered about it, you could still say that the jury convicted him and the conviction got vacated. It really is time for us as a country to move forward, and to just keep bemoaning the fact that he was convicted is no different than the president-elect bemoaning the fact that he never lost the election. It's enough already.
Okay.
Could we please look ahead?
Yeah, because another former federal prosecutor, Nima Rahmani, essentially told me on the air a couple of days ago that if no punishment is formally or officially rendered, i.e. sentencing, that's why you can't call him a convicted felon here. I want to talk, though, about Justice Juan Merchan. Does he seem to be dragging his feet on this question of whether the case should be dismissed? Can we read the tea leaves about why he keeps punting this, so to speak? Another hearing will be made on December the 2nd. We were expecting an answer on that question today. We didn't get it. Why? What is in his head right now?
Well, we are dealing once again in unprecedented territory. There's nothing to fall back on. There's nothing to look to say, well, this is what happened the last time, so why don't we do it this time? I think Justice Merchan is exhibiting judicial temperament. He is being circumspect. He's not rushing to, as Johnny Cochran used to say, he's not rushing to judgment. And quite frankly, I think he's kind of hoping that the prosecution and the defense get together on this and give him a graceful exit out. And again, that graceful exit out would be the conviction really cannot stand in light of the Supreme Court's decision on immunity. So let's vacate it. And if it turns out that the DA's office does not re-prosecute it and it just kind of goes away, it just kind of goes away.
And just to reiterate, this is Nima Rahmani's thoughts on this. Donald Trump may not be a felon after all. Rahmani says Judge Merchan continued next week's sentencing again without explanation. That leads him to believe he's considering dismissing the case entirely. Otherwise, why not sentence Trump to a fine before he takes office? Thoughts, Randy?
Because I think that that would be viewed badly. I think the optics of that would be terrible. It would look like that Justice Merchan is trying to exact punishment, and punishment is not the only goal of sentencing. I think it looks political. It further divides this country, and I think that Justice Merchan is again with judicial temperament, and that's what you want from a judge. I'm not going to be pressured by politics. I'm not going to be pressured by party. I'm not going to be pressured by anything other than doing justice. And the question really is doing justice, sentencing the president-elect, what do we accomplish by that? What is to be gained? We're not talking about deterrence. We're not talking about just punishment. What are we talking about?
Yeah.
And to me, I think he's kind of hoping that the decision gets made for him.
Okay, lastly, Randy, one of Trump's lead attorneys in this entire case, or at least defended the former president, is a guy by the name of Todd Blanche.
Pretty good lawyer.
What's that?
Pretty good lawyer.
Okay, so, but to that point, Randy, obviously a conviction was secured against Trump, so you can make the argument that maybe not so good in this case here. Nevertheless, Trump tapped him to be the next deputy attorney general here. How is that all going to pan out? Trump was his former client. He's now going to be working for Trump if he gets confirmed. Is there any conflict of interest there?
Well, let's be clear, and we'll do a little wordsmithing now on my end.
Okay.
The attorney general is not the president's attorney. The attorney general is the people of the United States' attorney. Just because the attorney general or the deputy attorney general is nominated by the president, that person, those people are not the president's lawyers. The president has lawyers. We've seen this previously. White House counsel is different than the attorney general. So technically, Mr. Blanche is no longer Mr. Trump's lawyer. He is Mr. Trump's former lawyer. To me, and I say it kind of laughing, it'll be interesting if anybody wants to go after the president and tries to get around immunity, if anybody goes after the White House, does Mr. Blanche have a conflict of interest to the extent that he's now taking a position adverse to his former client?
Yeah, that I guess remains to be seen. We'll be on the lookout for that. As always, Randy Zelin, can't thank you enough for helping us make sense of that. I know it was complicated today, but you did a very good job as always. Randy, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right.